from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team in. Started from the bottom, now we here. Yeah, I done kept it real from the...
Hi, everybody. Oh, I got some highs back. All right. My name is Michelle Suarez. I am the founder of Florida Entrepreneur Law. We are a boutique law firm based out of South Florida. I personally was born and raised in Miami to Cuban immigrant parents. I value anybody that wants to come to Florida and make it better. I also happen to have several Canadian clients myself, and fortuitously was presented with this opportunity. So thank you, Spark Financial Group, for having me. Now, some of what I'm going to cover has been lightly covered already. I will do my best to make it interesting, which is hard when you're a lawyer. But that being said, there's a couple things that you guys need to know when you're setting up businesses in Florida. As the accountants that came before me mentioned, typically what you will see is an LLC structure. The first thing you have to decide when you want to invest in a business in Florida is what type of entity am I going to set up? Am I going to set up an LLC or am I going to set up a corporation? Now, you may not know it, but you cannot be an S Corp, which is a tax designation, but it's also a legal designation in the United States unless you're a U.S. citizen or a resident. So you have to be either a C Corp or an LLC. Most people opt for an LLC because, quite frankly, it's easier to set up. Here's the thing, though. In Florida, we like to do things a little bit backwards, and we have something called a charging order, which is a remedy that a creditor can use to try to essentially pierce the corporate veil to get to your personal assets if you are a single member LLC. So if you are going to set up an LLC in Florida, talk to a corporate attorney who knows what they're doing, and make sure that you have more than one member, even if it's a spouse or a family member that owns 5% and is a passive member. It helps add that extra layer of protection so that they can't get to your assets. You can always set up as a C Corp as well, but as I'm sure your tax consultants will tell you, it's not always as beneficial. The LLC structure is a lot easier for tax purposes and legal reasons. Now, the next thing that you need to know is people tend to say, okay, I'm just going to set up an LLC with my accountant and that's it, I'm done. The problem with that is that if you do not have actual contracts, even if it's just you by yourself setting up your company to say, okay, this is our company, this is what we're going to do, this is what's going to happen to my interest when I die. People think, oh, I have a trust, I have a will, that's all I need. That's not true. In Florida, if you have an operating agreement, which is the contract that governs your business when you're an LLC, that document can actually say what happens to your business, what happens to your interest in your business when you die, when you get divorced, when you file for bankruptcy. So if you plan appropriately, and we like to work with our clients, CFOs, tax consultants, immigration attorneys, to make sure that your team, because that's what you really should have if you're investing in Florida, is a team. I think that's the whole point of today, to make sure that everybody understands what your goals are. Because if you're only working with one person and one person isn't communicating with another, you might be shooting yourselves in the foot and spending more money. Another reason that it's really important that you have an operating agreement, quite frankly, is that I make way more money off of you if you don't. Because when you get in a dispute because you don't have a contract and somebody wants to sue somebody else because they weren't doing what they said they were going to do in the business in Florida, well, guess what? Litigators, people like us that fight in court, now get to charge you a much higher rate and make a lot more money. So while it may seem like, oh, do I really need to spend a couple grand to put some contracts together? Yes, you do. It will save you hundreds, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road. Besides that, someone mentioned earlier, I think it was our wonderful immigration attorney, which I gotta get with you. We've got synergy and clients that we can send to each other. But if you are setting up a business in Florida, a legitimate business, you're going to need more than just your organic contracts. Your organic contracts is just legal talk for the contracts that your business uses to operate. You're going to need property management contracts. If you hire employees, you're going to need employment policies. Or if you have an independent contractor, Yes, you're going to want an independent contractor agreement. True story, one of my former clients. If you don't take the time to put an independent contractor agreement together and you think they're responsible for paying their taxes in the US, and it turns out they're actually an employee, they're not really an independent contractor just because you called them that, now the IRS can come after you for their taxes. So if you put a contract together that says, hey, you're an independent contractor, here are all the reasons why, and we know what to put in the contract to make them an actual independent contractor, then if that happens, not your problem. So, contracts, boring? Yes. Important? Absolutely. So, you know you need a contract, you know you need a good attorney, you need a good immigration attorney, you need a good tax consultant. Now what happens? Well, once you have your team together, your business attorney will set you up in the state of Florida with all of the documents you need with the state. Once we have that, then you get your amazing tax consultants to set you up with what's called your FEIN, your Federal Employment Identification Number. Once you have both of those, typically a bank will require you to open their bank account for your business. You have to have been set up with SunBiz, which is Florida's Division of Corporations website, and have your FEIN. Once you guys have that, you set up your business account, and then you run everything through that business account. Why is a lawyer talking about your business account? Because I'm also a litigator, and I fight in court. And if we're trying to pierce the corporate veil to get to your assets, the first thing we're going to look at is, are they actually treating this as a business, or are they just running their personal expenses through the business? You have to treat it completely separate. Even if you use your own personal money to buy something for the business, cool, pay yourself back from the business. So you're going to treat it as a separate entity. Once you do that, get insurance. Get insurance, get insurance. I think we have an insurance person on the panel. I hope we do. I think we do. Super important. Another true story. Had a business, set up a restaurant in Boca, very successful, franchise. Told the guy, do not open your doors until you have a commercial general liability policy. He didn't listen. They opened for business. A minor got beat up by the bouncer that they had. He was on the property underage drinking. That minor's attorney was a lawyer. That minor's father was a lawyer. What do you think happened? That business closed. And I fired the client for other reasons. But my point is, you need to do things the right way to protect your money, avoid the lawsuits, and make your life better. Now, everybody loves to ask corporate attorneys, well, why don't I set up in Delaware or Nevada or Wyoming? First of all, the only reason y'all want to set up in Delaware is because it sounds fancy, but unless you're a tech company, you don't need to be there. Okay. Second of all, it'll cost you more money to set up in those states if you're still operating in Florida, because then you have to file in that state, pay the annual fee that they have and require, pay a registered agent to be there, and you still have to file as a foreign business doing business in Florida if you want to sue someone. So now you're paying fees in 2 states. Also, everybody's like, oh, but they're anonymous. They're anonymous. I don't want my name on public records. Wyoming, Nevada, Delaware. That's all about to change, y'all. Well, it won't be public record, but there is a law that just passed that's federal called the Corporate Transparency Act. And FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Division of the Treasury Department of the United States, as of January 1st, 2024, everybody that owns 25% or more of a business in the United States, period, end of story, has to submit information about their ownership interest to FinCEN. Now that information is confidential. If you get in litigation, a good enough attorney can get at those records because you can subpoena for them. So my point is, yes, there's anonymity in these other states, but if anonymity is your concern, yes, you can still set up in the states. It makes it more difficult. Just know that you will pay more in fees. Delaware, for example, a lot of people don't realize when they set up there, they have an annual franchise fee. The minimum annual franchise fee for an LLC, I believe, is at $300 or something like that. So don't just set up in one of these other states because that's what you've heard. Figure out what the real reasons why that you want to set up there. That was pretty much it, because all of the other corporate formalities are just going to like go over your head and bore you and all of those things. But all of the things that you want to do in Florida, we can help with. We serve as a general counsel firm, so we also do brand protection. So for example, one of my Canadian clients, they're in the construction industry. They've done extremely well up here, and they're expanding not to South Florida, to Orlando, and then eventually to South Florida. We're doing their trademarks. We're doing their brand protection. If you decide, your real estate management company is doing excellent and you want to franchise it or start it out, franchise compliance is very federally regulated in the U.S., so you have to make sure that you have a business attorney, not what we call door law attorneys, which is they take whatever walks through the door. You need people who specialize in what they do. So just make sure that you do that, and then you have a team that surrounds you that works synergistically together. My name is Michelle Suarez. Thank you for your time. I hope you guys have a great evening.